Hey everyone, my name is Connortbot. I'm a SPELLBREAK content creator and streamer, and I mostly focus on growing the game by helping out beginners and introducing them to the game. If you're a beginner and you're looking for an intro guide to introduce you to the game, or just in general a streamer that'll help you out, that's me. Welcome. If you don't enjoy this, be sure to like and subscribe. If you do enjoy it, be sure to like and subscribe. As you can tell by the thumbnail, today is a part 2 video. Now, they're not meant to be seen in chronological order, but meant to be seen on what gauntlets you want to be covered or you want to know more about. Today we're covering Pyro, Tempest, and Toxic, the 3 classes that I probably play the most. In all seriousness though, SPELLBREAK is a pretty small community, and I think it's going to grow after it goes to full release after July 20th. And it'll really help a lot if you like, sub, comment, all that kind of stuff, because it gets my stuff out there to other people that are also into SPELLBREAK. So thank you. Let's get started. Yeah, I know. Number 1, Pyro. Pyro is a mid-range 1 projectile gauntlet. On click, it fires 1 fire gauntlet relatively slow in a straight line. It can be considered one of the entry-level gauntlets to this game and is the actual beginner's gauntlet in the tutorial. It's quite a slow projectile and teaches the fundamentals of SPELLBREAK's aim very early on. I highly suggest beginners to play this simply because it teaches you to lead your shots very well without having an overly complicated playstyle. When hitting a surface, it has a small AoE explosion that doesn't run half the damage. In the class, this explosion is 200% larger and very useful. It leaves a small flame on the ground when it does, and it damages the caster, so be careful. The common gauntlet at most hits around 20 to 25, whereas the rest generally place around 30 damage. Keep in mind that the Pyro gauntlet has something called Ignite, which is short damage over time. In the current version, it does 1 or 2 ticks. It doesn't say on the official wiki, but in my experience, it's around 4 per tick. The mana cost is around 17. You can get in at least 3 shots before having to recharge your mana. The ability is Flame Wall, which is a horizontal wall you cast in front of you. This wall is great for blocking choke points, because walking through it does 12 damage with 6 per tick. It does double with class usage. They're taller than you think, so don't be stingy with your mana to get over it just because the tick really hurts. It blocks all ice and toxic projectiles, so don't put down a wall and try to use those two through the wall you just put down. Toxic creates dragon fire, and ice puts down the part of the flame it goes through. Now, a lot of new players will struggle a lot with the leading shots. It's not an aiming mechanic common in FPS games. You'll need to put in a solid amount of time playing SPELLBREAK and this gauntlet to get a feel for leading your shots. An easy way is for them to be in the air. If they're close or mid-range, put your crosshairs slightly under them and shoot. Gravity will pull them right into it. It also works from above when they levitate towards you. But no matter what, never aim right at them. It simply will not work, as SPELLBREAK has so much mobility. A big beginner's mistake is always aiming for the ground, because the explosion radius is so big that it's the easiest way to deal damage. You'll get quick results doing this, but you won't improve or win harder fights. Learn to get used to hitting them dead on, as it does way more damage. Another note with the wall, it is a very good defense against toxic players. It's quite wide, so just put it down in front of you and it can protect you from a lot. Should you use it? Well, Pyro is a very versatile class in terms of playstyle. Its explosions radius is actually pretty viable for lobbing long shots and playing super passive. In a game where 3rd, 4th, and 5th parties happen every fight, that might be the style for you. This gauntlet is good and is the perfect gauntlet to teach beginners. So to be honest, this gauntlet is for anyone. If you're new, play it. With the recent patch, it does a lot of damage and is very viable in combination with many different gauntlets, such as in the Tempest class as an offhand, Toxic as an offhand, and obviously as its own class. Fairly soon after this video is coming out, I'm going to have a Toxic gameplay that I put out, and in that video, I have Pyro as my offhand. And if you watch it, you can see that I play extremely aggressive with it, but some people don't. How to counter. If you're going to hide, don't hide around the corner. Pyro has a bigger explosion than you think, and getting hit not only reveals your location, but also damages. The biggest part of playing against a Pyromancer is unpredictability. Fire is the 2nd slowest projectile in the game. It relies on the user's ability to lead their shots, so if you can be extremely unpredictable in your usage or runes and movement abilities, you won't get hit. Unless you are a Tempest, your air and mobility to be unpredictable is less than on the ground, and it uses mana. Especially if you have bad management, stay on the ground while moving in all directions to quickly dodge incoming fireballs. You are faster on the air than you are in the air. Oh, did I just oh my god. Especially if you have bad management, stay on the ground while moving in all directions to quickly dodge incoming fireballs while shooting your own projectiles. You are faster on the ground than you are in the air. Your rune should not be used for the sole purpose of closing or increasing the distance. It should be used to be unpredictable while also doing one of those things. Almost every rune has the capacity of quick or long movement, so use it to change distance and go in directions and places your opponent won't expect, even if you're not going to main it because it teaches you the game's mechanics. Number 2, Tempest. Tempest is a rapid fire gauntlet. It's kind of like the SMG in this game. With the class, it's made for high mobility playstyle in the air. Without it, it is often used to get in fast damage. I personally use it as a finisher for Toxic, or I used to before the patch, when I needed quick, reliable damage, but not necessarily a lot. It has a big damage fall off, sometimes doing literally 3 damage per hit. As you can see, Wind specializes in quick but not technically efficient damage. It can have a good DPS but requires hitting all your shots, which is why most players use it strictly for mobility and quick hits. Now there is a really annoying playstyle called Wind spamming, which is where you constantly use your Wind's mobility and just keep shooting Wind at your enemy until it dies. It's extremely boring, and if you do it, you suck. It's just me, but personally I don't use Wind anymore with anything, not as an offhand. I strictly only use it when I play as a class, and I think a lot of other players will agree with me. The Tornado ability is very interesting. It combines with Toxic, Fire, and Conduit to make respective elemental tornadoes. It bends the fire around it at different curve angles, making it a very advanced way to do mix-ups. In a 13-meter radius, it pulls in players and lasts 4 seconds. A good tip for escaping is to not be too hasty. Being caught in it likely will cause damage. Any movement rune will get you out easily, but if you don't have one, do not levitate. Hit the ground and run out and you'll be quick. This is because it pulls on airborne players harder than people on the ground. Don't shoot when you are unsighted. If you shoot a fireball, for example, you will damage yourself because you will make it a fire tornado while you are inside it. Should you use it? This is a pretty complicated question for Tempest. Tempest has very specific reasons for combining with other gauntlets. If you run as a class, you need to have good aim and good reflexes to balance your mobility and attack. It's probably one of the harder and not one of the best classes at the moment and in the meta. It can be used for what the community has dubbed, like I said, wind spam, but in my opinion, it should be used for wind jumping. Merlin the Wizard is a streamer that is notorious for his fire bending abilities. He runs wind with his pyro gauntlets for the sole reason to have a tornado and bending his fireballs. This is a very daunting and I guess you could say it's a difficult technique. I've never really tried it. No one really does it, but it's pretty hard to hit, to be honest. Of course, if any other vets would like to dispute this, that's fine. I'd love to have a discussion in the comments. If you have a different opinion about anything I say, I'd love to discuss it, so just say it in the comments. I don't see its potential as an offhand gauntlet at all, except for the strict usage of its tornado. It is not the most beginner-friendly class, but it has its special applications. How to counter. Allow me to just say that Tempest is by far one of the hardest classes to fight personally, if they're good. If they're not, then they just wind jump and I just hit them with a pyro. I asked Tacos, who's another great SPELLBREAK streamer you should check out. He explained in great detail some tips for playing against a Tempest, so check out his channel. He is linked in the description. He's also one of the best Tempest players in the entire community, so being under a Tempest is a bad position to be in. Try to use your runes and mana to hit at least the same level or above them. If you have gauntlets like Conduit, punish them in the air. They like to be in terrain that isn't too open with high and low places to bounce around on and use their wind jumps to gain positional advantage. Pushing them can have drastic results if you miss your shots. To quote Big Boy Tacos, distance is your best friend against a Tempest. They will often break off line of sight when damaged in the air and try to heal. If you can't push and stay on the same vertical level as them, then play passively. And finally, the moment you have not been waiting for, but I have. Number 3 is my main, my boy Toxic. Toxic is a close and wide range gauntlet. It shoots multiple small toxic darts that curve down as they fly. It is meant for long range tick and starting damage, but shreds right in their face. It's the damage dealer in class and is a great damage dealer as an offhand. It can serve as a mid-long range, lobbing top shots long to apply corrosion damage as they approach. In the class, it leaves toxic puddles on the floor that gives ticks of 6 damage. With ice, it has one of the bigger ranges of damage. This is because it is meant to be the shotgun class, increasing in damage the closer you are and the amount of projectiles that hit the opponent. Corrosion is referred to as a debuff. It deals 3 ticks of 4 damage to armor, but not to health. The massive damage range, like I said, is because of the range. Its pure damage state is meant to be up close. The sorcery is a toxic cloud. Your character throws a cloud in an arc through the air. Once it makes contact with any surface, it billows into a big cloud doing corrosion damage. It does 6 damage per tick to people inside, and if you are not playing the toxic class, it can damage you. The cloud, like other toxic attacks, combine with fire to create a high damage dragon cloud. The cloud, like other toxic attacks, combine with fire to create dragon fire, which is one of the most damaging combos in the game. As well, wind with around 4 shots completely blows out the cloud. Without any interference, this cloud lasts 5 seconds with a 15-second cooldown. Toxicologist players have an ability called Vanishing Mist. This is an ability that causes that player to dash and turn invisible. If you see someone quickly use it and are a toxicologist, odds are they're invincible and sprinting towards you. Toxicologists have an ability called Vanishing Mist. It is when they put a cloud down in front of them and they walk into it, causing them to do a quick dash and turn invisible. If you see someone quickly use it and they're a toxicologist, it probably means they're invisible and used it to get really close to tox slap you in the face. So here's some epico tips. High ground. Get high ground. It's super duper important. You need to do everything possible to minimize the risk that comes with being so close as a toxic. Against gauntlets like fire, it's hard to keep up. Use shadow step, movement rooms, invisibility, and vanishing mists. Give yourself as many advantages so you can be close and dealing damage while dodging, or have something in between so that you don't take damage. It comes with practice. Should you use it? Yes, definitely. It's a beginner-friendly gauntlet, but one of the most common gauntlets among all levels. Some consider it to be the best gauntlet on its own, and I can see that. It can cover all ranges within reason, and does a lot of damage no matter what class you are. It covers the close range that some classes and gauntlets might not have. If you're a beginner, I might not immediately suggest playing the class, but go for it if you like it. It's one of the most common gauntlets in the game, and playing it will have you understand it. The gauntlet, when used, usually plays extremely aggressive. If you like that or the allure of the high damage, and it appeals to you, then play it. How to counter it. Toxicologist really struggles in open areas. They need easy ways to get up close, and if you're able to match their rune movements and abilities, they can't get up close. Although long-range tox shots can do some damage, gauntlets like Conduit, Frost, Stone, or really anything other than Tempest can do reliable damage far away. In an open area, you can land many easy shots as they desperately try to approach you. Because there's no built-in game cover and places to weave through, they are forced to charge right at you. Keep using runes to hold the distance. Toxicologist's big weakness is the amount of risk it takes to deal damage, so hold a position where you can keep that risk factor. Good players will push you into places like Fort Halcyon or use shadow steps and vanishing mist to approach. If you are a toxicologist yourself, it's more or less the same. To win this fight, you either need to be that much better with aim and mobility and game sense, or you give yourself an advantage. The pre-fight to toxics fighting each other is the mid-range battle. If you can deal the damage with conduit, ice, fire, anything else, you have the advantage to win. This is kind of just scratching the surface. I'd be really interested in making a toxicologist guide for new players or people who want tips on picking up the class, so drop a comment if that's interesting to you. I'm still trying to put out videos before it goes temporarily online in July 5th, although I think I'm just going to keep putting out gaming videos until then, because I don't want to keep making guides that might be obsolete after. This is the end of the video, and thank you so much for watching. Thanks to Tacos for the tips, and thanks to you for making it this far. Check out my Twitch in the description. I hope to see you there. Enjoy your stay. Bye-bye now. Just stick to Tyra or right now, I guess. Ah! He's back! Get off the point! Please let me get the Vivian. Please, please. Oh!